their guys and Lawrence Taylor and all the rest of it to try and get WrestleMania as out there as possible. Looking back at it, it looked so annoying for Shawn Michaels and Diesel when they were trying to get them out of the way. Did you notice that as much, Matt, watching it this time around?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, it was almost like bumping into him all the time. Almost like every time you go outside the ring, it was not the right kind of. They hadn't thought it through clearly enough at this point. I think they could have handled that a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's move on then, and we're going to talk a little bit about WrestleMania now. Financially, here, the show drew an easy sellout of 15,000 fans. Which paid the WWF at that time £750,000 in the Hartford Civic Centre. However, the buy rate was a huge disappointment, estimated at somewhere between 1.4 to 1.5, grossing about 5.5 million for Titan Sports, barely outperforming the Ultimate Fight Live just days later, despite having more mainstream publicity than any of the wrestling, any other wrestling outlet or UFC product would have had in North America. So it seems like overall, Matt, business, didn't pick up. Maybe they didn't get as many. It would have probably been a disaster in terms of the PR towards getting Lawrence Taylor involved and Pamela Anderson. Do you put that on Diesel, or do you put that on just the WWF in general? I mean, who do you put the blame on here, Matt, at this point?
Well, as hard as it is to say, I guess it's WWF, because ultimately they have the final say in everything that goes down.
Yeah.
And I guess, all the mistakes that were going to be made up to that point about this is going to fall on their doorstep.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things, because people, whenever they go back, they always go, Diesel, he was terrible because the buy rates were down and everything else. But you've got to remember that they were really heavily in competition with WCW. Financially, things weren't fantastic at WWF. So I don't really know if you can just put the blame on the guys. I mean, there was always a debate about would a Brett have been a better solution because he might have got more eyes watching. Could they have done more with him on a main event? But then again, putting Lawrence Taylor in the main event, I'm not sure how good of an idea that was either to all this. So I think there are a lot of reasons why, and I don't think you can solely blame it on any just one guy. That's for sure. But I guess it was that whole thing, Matt, that for many, many years, as long as you had Hulk Hogan on the card, you were guaranteed quite a high rating. And I suppose that's where that philosophy and that sort of viewpoints come from, hasn't it, over the years? Especially at this point, that if you are the guy and you're not getting the numbers up, then it's down to your champion, to the biggest babyface at the time. And I'm guessing that's where that all come from. Shawn Michaels, it's reported here, who was working as pretty much the star of the show on one of the Raws following, is doing an injury angle leading to a babyface turn, which probably doesn't come as too much of a surprise. And of course, the lineup is, of course, that he'll probably be feuding with his other bodyguard, Sid. After all this, and the fun fact here, and of course, just to keep on Bob Holly here, Matt, he won his first race at a local track in a mobile over the weekend. So there you go, Bob Holly. You heard it here. If you haven't heard it for that many times about all this, he is his gimmick at that point. Not before the hardcore gimmick. He was the Sparky Plug, or whatever they used to call him. He was the real deal. He'd won a race here. He'd been sponsored. He had a car by Vince McMahon. A lot of pressure on you, I suppose, if you're gonna get that much behind you. But there you go. Another fun fact here is that Michael Hayes debuted on Superstars as none other than, yes, Doc Hendricks, with a haircut. To go with it, shave, and being much better dressed. Jerry Lawler moved to doing Raw. Jim Cornette was only temporary co-host. So they were shuffling things around. Matt, we'll probably speak about Michael Hayes a few times on our timelines, but it's fascinating, isn't it, when you consider Michael Hayes and the Freebirds, the popularity of this guy, and it almost seemed like to get a WWF gig, you're sitting in the office and, you're sitting in front of Vince and he comes up with this elaborate idea. No, we're not going to keep your name, and your name's going to be Doc Hendricks. Haircut. He even grew the moustache in, didn't he? As well, he had the moustache with it, and he was just literally an announce guy backstage. Doing the whole Todd Pettingill gig. It's fascinating that they've done this so many times with these guys, but it's weird because I look at Doc Hendricks and Michael Hayes, I almost see them as two different people, Matt. I don't know what you think about all that, but whenever I think of Doc Hendricks, he was very good at keeping him out of the Michael Hayes character, I guess, that you'd known him to be for so long.
Yeah, I mean, he did do a good job there, sort of separating those two characters, and probably quite rightfully so, because you wouldn't want them to be associated together. I mean, yeah. I think the character he portrayed in WWF at that time, I think it was not one to be going down in the history books. I don't think that's how he got into the Hall of Fame off of the back of that. But yeah, it's incredible. Like you said, the amount of people that they would do this to in WWF, where they would just give him a whole new character. And I think it was almost for the benefit of younger fans that hadn't known. I mean, of course, the majority of the fans did know where this guy come from. But I guess a lot of the children watching him would just think he was the backstage announcer. This is what he's been doing all of his life.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Another fun fact here as well is Paul Levesque's first vignettes have appeared this weekend. Not only is he doing a Steve Regal gimmick, reports Meltzer, but he's doing 100% copy of copying the name of Hunter Helmsley, I believe, is what Meltzer's reporting here. Of course, it would be Hunter Hearst Helmsley overall. This is the first time I can remember WWF ever using a current WCW gimmick on one of its wrestlers. So, yeah, of course, worth pointing that out because, of course, Paul Levesque, Triple H, would get very close to the whole clique, and he would be pretty much brought in very fast. With those guys and travel with those guys on the road, and it kind of it just made even more numbers to already what they had. Going into May now, and they're doing the tour around Europe, so they're in Dortmund, Germany, and it's Diesel and Razor Ramon beating Jeff Jarrett, who they seem to like keeping him at the top, don't they? Jeff Jarrett and Psycho Sid in the main events. These matches are not getting that bad star ratings, so I'm taking it they weren't all that, they were pretty decent. Also in other German tours, it's a WWF title match, and they're already doing this program, Matt, which is Diesel up against Bam Bam Bigelow, and I guess that makes some sort of sense considering where they've come off of WrestleMania, having those two guys maybe for the future, and this is why they're going to try and test the waters with that match. This one's interesting as well. Some funny notes in the German program. Diesel was listed as being 7'4", and Sid was billed as Psycho Kid. I think we know someone like that could have said all these. But yeah, Psycho Kid and 7'4". That's slightly exaggerated there, isn't it? There was always exaggerations in WWF, but I think that one might have taken it a little bit too extreme for 7'4". Oh, yeah. But it's amazing, isn't it? Because Diesel, anyway, just to look at the guy, even on a TV screen's already got it. You don't really need to sort of sell it anymore. But there you go. Matt, do you think Psycho Kid could have worked better? Is that a name that should have stood? Never know.
I can't say that one was winning me over. But that 7'4" thing, ridiculous. It's almost as bad as what they used to do with Big Show, or like when they used to exaggerate that and his weight constantly.
Yeah, that was quite incredible. Some of the weights and heights they've said of him in the past. Okay, further on in the European tour, and Diesel is up against Sid. He's beaten him. in the WWF title match, and he also does the same thing on the Action Zone and WWF Challenge tapings. He's working with Sid on an episode of Monday Night Raw from the 24th of the 4th, Diesel versus Bam Bam Bigelow title match, doing a 3.9 rating, which translate into 2.2 million homes are watching that. The largest audience to watch pro wrestling in the United States since Hogan Flair match last August. So that's quite a big deal there, Matt, and it's interesting that they did that Diesel Bam Bam match just on a Raw. Do you think that was just purely to get the ratings up? Because it seems like if they did a good job, but it's sort of like it's sort of hit and miss, because then you don't get it on pay-per-view, that match. And it was always difficult back then on how much do you give away on free TV, but at the same time, when you've got competition now, you've got to be seen to put in something on, some sort of meaningful match. I mean, a 3.9 was definitely nothing to be sniffed at, but that match, Diesel and Bam Bam match, I mean, that seemed to have money on it, considering where they come off of WrestleMania there.
Yeah, definitely. But I think it was a good move to put it out there like that, because, like I said, it was not a great time for WWF. Mm-hmm. So to get people interested week in, week out, just to throw off a match like that out of nowhere, it generates some interest, and you might think that future Raws that you might tune into would have something like that with equal quality.
Yeah. More Bob Holly news here. I feel like Bob Holly is becoming the big part of this one, but it's just some fun facts. I don't know when we'll talk about this, but ESPN is scheduling a feature on Bob Holly with the two sport gimmick. Apparently it's made real headlines here about him doing not only wrestling, but he's a race driver as well. So it's hitting, legit sport channels now, which I guess is good for the WWF. It's kind of interesting. I just don't remember Bob Holly, but of course, if he was doing these two things, it would have been great for WWF, and you could see Vince enjoying that his product was getting out there to different audiences. So you never know. I'm surprised it never worked him into anything more than what it got in the end, considering how much attention he was getting and how much Vince had invested in this whole thing. But I want to bring us up now then to the first ever, Matt, In Your House pay-per-view. I'm sure you remember these.
Yeah.
And this is when WWF wanted to step the pay-per-view game up, because WCW had gone to 8 pay-per-views. So WWF thought, hang on a minute, we better do the same as well. And they were then going to try and put these In Your House shows on. And at this one, it's the match between Diesel and Sid. Matt, is this the one that you didn't get to see? I know we spoke before we come on the air. There was one that you didn't get to see. Was this the one between Diesel and Sid?
Well, yeah, it was, but I tell you what, since we've been on the air, I've been having it on in the background there and checking it out, and I've seen it now for all the excitement that was.
Yeah, let me tell you this much. This match got voted the worst match of the entire pay-per-view, which is not good from the Wrestling Observers anyway on their polling stations. And yeah, I mean, this is just one of those times where I don't know if it's just like the two big guys working again, and I know that I don't know where you are on your match at the moment. There is shenanigans at the end with Bam Bam Bigelow and all of that, but
through it, seen it all.
It's not great. There's the tankers involved as well. It's just one of those things. It looks kind of a little bit clumsy, and there's things that are not going too steady. But I mean, obviously, Diesel retains the WWF title, beating Sid via DQ in just under 12 minutes. And Meltzer puts this down as clumsy, predictable match overall. Meltzer also reports it was noticeable the empty blotches of seats, even in the first elevated ringside section right in front of the camera, indicated the same thing. The only match that seemed to have real heat going in was Diesel versus Sid, but that was also the worst match of the